Russian President Vladimir Putin has once again pushed his ambition to establish what he calls a new world order to rival and usurp the geopolitical and economic preeminence enjoyed by the US-led West. It comes as the country hosts the 16th BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia. Putin has described the beefed-up BRICS group as a strong indication of the growing authority of the association and its role in international affairs. As signaled on Friday, he intends for the so-called BRICS Plus format to challenge the West on both a geopolitical and economic front. BRICS is initially made up of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Now he has additional members in Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates, which joined the group in January.
The 16th BRICS summit officially opens in Russia, and the spotlight is on the city of Kazan. The summit, hosted by President Vladimir Putin, witnessed the attendance of more than 20 heads of state in what the Kremlin calls one of the largest-scale foreign policy events ever in Russia. Leaders arriving for the three-day summit includes Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, among others. The diplomatic forum, founded 15 years ago by major emerging markets including Brazil, Russia, India, and China, has since expanded to include South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. President Putin says the BRICS group will generate most of the global economic growth in the coming years due to its size and relatively fast growth compared with that of developed Western nations. He hopes to build BRICS countries as a powerful counterweight to the West in global politics and trade. The Russian president also wants other countries to work with it to overhaul the global financial system and end the dominance of the US dollar. The BRICS nation accounts for 45% of the global population. Added together, members' economies are worth more than $28.5 trillion. That's around 28% of the global economy.
The VOA's Ricardo Makina is in Moscow, from where he joins us. Ricardo, great to see you. And it would appear that the Russian president is carefully monitoring developments in the international scene to know where to plug in. With the rest of the world now distracted by the war in the Middle East, would you say that he's found perfect timing to pitch his plans for a new world order?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. Well, this meeting was programmed. Every year we have a meeting of the BRICS, so the timing is the usual, but it's true that now is the world, as you say, is looking to the Middle East, especially the situation in Gaza, Israel, Lebanon. So it's a very good timing for Putin to plan this meeting and to see what is the impression that he has from the most closer allies. How is the war going on, especially after the North Korean forces joined the Russian army in the fight. So yes, Putin is taking advantage of the war looking to the Middle East to see if he can put together, come with a strong unity position of especially from China and India, the two more important allies for Russia in the BRICS right now, to have a strong position, especially for the aftermath of the American elections.
Yeah, and I know that the relations with China are a little fraught right now because China is unhappy with the fact that North Korea did send troops to Russia, and those troops might be fighting in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But what would it mean for the Russian government, for President Putin himself, to have this new world order? I figure this is something he's been thinking about since, Russia invaded Ukraine.
Of course, the idea of the new order is something that is in the mouth of Russian and Chinese leadership for almost a decade. So this idea that a multipolar world will be, better for the world in the political arena and to bring peace and stability to the world, But finally, the BRICS is a very young and very not really a groupation yet. They change the economical and political change. They are very weak. It's not a strong unity. It's not. They have several struggles to have even economical partnerships. So it's more than an illusion, an idea to project to West that there are a contra force that can be the counterpart in the political arena. But so far, BRICS is more a promise for the future than a reality right now.
And speaking of the future, just wondering, Ricardo, if this could have been, in the horizon for the Russian president as BRICS approved the admission of these new members, talking about Ethiopia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates. Could he be taking advantage of them, seeing that this is an opportunity to eventually make this a reality, not just for him, but also for these countries?
So it's a very extremely complicated issue because these countries that you right now tell us, they have a very strong difference what must be the relationship with the United States. So Arab Emirates have a very good relationship, economic relationship with Europe, with the United States, also with China, also with Russia. They don't want conflict with the United States. The same we can say about India. India have different point of view, but they don't want confrontation with the United States. But we see Iran, in the other hand, yes, or China, or Russia, they have a very strong dialectic against the United States. So it will be extremely difficult to put to all of them to come together in the political unity. So as much Putin wants to use this to project himself as a world leader, well respected and well known, the reality is that all these countries, they have a huge list of problems between them.
They do. And how is this being echoed in the rest of Europe? I know that you're in Moscow, but I'm sure that you're monitoring, how the rest of Europe is responding to President Putin's call.
It's a very interesting topic because if we see the United Nations, all the government level, so presidents, prime ministers, they respect BRICS because they have strong allies inside. So we see that, for example, France, United Kingdom, they have a good commercial connection with some of these countries. So they don't see BRICS as the extension of the Russian policy. But if we go to the different social parties and the social movements in the far right and the far left, they are very excited about the BRICS. Especially the far left in Europe, they see like the new rebuilding of the poor countries, the global south, as they love to say, fighting against the hegemonic power of the United States.
Yes, and I do want to apologize to our viewers there. We seem to be rolling the wrong clip of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, but we're talking about the BRICS. Just also, Ricardo, is it a ploy to get these leaders on his side as Russia continues to push this war on Ukraine? We already know the plan is to overtake Ukraine, run it over, make sure that their plans and their ambitions of joining NATO is quashed and never revisited again. Do you think that these countries would help?
I think no. I think Russia can count with the political help of China. So the bone of the BRICS is of course China and Russia, but India today the First Minister of India tell Putin that is very needed a peaceful and political solution for the Ukrainian war. It's not the first time that the Indian Premier Minister say that in the face of Putin. So they have very different approach on how this must to end. Only China supports politically Russia, but not militarily, and of course the other countries, especially India or Brazil, also there are they talk with much more caution about this issue. So there are not political unity around Russia, but of course Vladimir Putin wants to present the BRIC as extension of the Russian political presence in the world.
And also want to point out the rain here in Lagos must be affecting our internet connectivity. Ricardo, just before you go, I noticed that President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, the Brazilian president, will not be attending the BRICS summit in Russia this year. But just for the sake of our viewers, what is the language of BRICS? You know, you have all of these countries, none of them speak English. So in what language do they communicate in?
I see a few videos today about in the meetings. So the agreement with them is that everyone speaks his native language, and they have translators. Putin speaks several languages. He can communicate in English, but he will never use it in a political meeting, especially with the media in front of them. So we see how they use their native languages. There are a lot of them in this meeting. So there are a lot of work for the translators.
Yeah, indeed, a lot of work for them and for the rest of us who are watching and you who's monitoring what's going on in Kazan. Thank you again, Ricardo.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
We can move on now to other stories regarding the invasion. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on Monday met with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during his visit to Ukraine in a show of solidarity with Kyiv just 2 weeks ahead of a U.S. presidential election that is casting uncertainty over the future of Western support. Austin's trip, his fourth and likely final visit as President Joe Biden's Pentagon chief, will include in-depth discussions about U.S. efforts at helping Kyiv shore up its defenses as Russian forces gain ground in eastern Ukraine. But it's not expected to include any agreement to some of Zelensky's biggest requests, such as lifting Washington's restrictions on using U.S.-supplied weapons to hit targets far beyond Ukraine's borders. Austin's visit comes ahead of the November 5th election, in which former President Donald Trump is seeking re-election in a close race against Vice President Kamala Harris.
Thank you, American people, President Biden, and bipartisan support. We are very thankful for all those support from the United States that's been done for Ukraine from the very beginning of this war. President Biden, by phone, we discussed a lot of things. And by the way, thanks for the last package supporting our soldiers. And we discussed a lot of important things about victory plan, about preparing for winter, is our air defense capabilities, how to strengthen all this. Also some details which will be, I think, out of cam about. I want to continue. Maybe we will have some results. No, I'm sure that we will have some important results.
Mr. President, it's great to see you again. Thanks for hosting us here in Kyiv. I'm honored to be back in Ukraine for my fourth visit as Secretary of Defense. And under your leadership, Ukraine has fought valiantly to defend its democracy, its sovereignty, and its citizens. The United States understands the stakes here, Mr. President. The outcome of Putin's war of choice matters to us and to the entire world.
The United States does say it will be a dangerous and highly concerning development if North Korea is sending soldiers to fight alongside Russia in Ukraine. Those remarks coming from Deputy U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, to the Security Council. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Pyongyang of preparing to send 10,000 soldiers to Russia. Ukraine's UN Ambassador Sergei Cesar told the Security Council on Monday these troops are expected to be ready for war against Ukraine by November 1. South Korea's spy agency said last week that North Korea had shipped 1,500 special forces troops to Russia's Far East for training and acclimatization at local military bases, and that they're likely to be deployed for combat in the war in Ukraine.
In its failure to overthrow Ukraine's democratically elected government, Russia is seeking to expand the conflict. We have seen reports the DPRK has sent forces and is preparing to send additional soldiers to Ukraine to fight alongside Russia. If true, this marks a dangerous and highly concerning development and an obvious deepening of the DPRK-Russia military relationship. We are consulting with our allies and partners on the implications of such a dramatic move. If Russia is indeed turning to the DPRK for manpower, it would be a sign of desperation on the part of the Kremlin. We know Russia is suffering extraordinary casualties on the battlefield due to the bravery and effectiveness of the Ukrainian military. Russia cannot sustain its aggression without assistance, which means this war ends if Iran and the DPRK stop providing military assistance and if China stops transferring dual-use war component.
It is highly likely that the DPRK has agreed to send combat troops in support of Russia's war against Ukraine. It seems that the harder Putin finds it to recruit Russians to be cannon fodder, the more willing he is to rely on DPRK in his illegal war.
By dispatching a large number of combatants, North Korea will likely become an active belligerent in warfare. This is not merely an attack on the very integrity of the Security Council sanctions regime. It is a blatant attempt to undermine peace and security, not only in Europe and in Northeast Asia, but also across the entire globe. North Korea will expect a generous payoff from Moscow in return for its troop contribution. It could be either military or financial assistance. It could be nuclear weapons-related technology.